This colossal mythical beast was born from the hellish electricity. It is a three-headed dog tasked with guarding the sacred gate, while also posing a colossal, ever-looming threat to all of humanity. It can be said that monsters in every culture do not merely represent fear or something to be banished. Sometimes, they also embody the authority of deities and are objects of worship and reverence. But were those mythical creatures merely products of the imagination, or did they truly exist in the distant past? Perhaps you've noticed that most creatures in mythology are typically a combination of features from many familiar animal species. For instance, the Sphinx or the centaur. Many believe that the ancients' creation of such half-human, half-beast mythical figures was not random, but because they had actually witnessed these creatures. Those who believe in the ancient astronaut theory contend that monsters are the products of genetic experiments conducted by extraterrestrials in the past. If that is true, then what evidence can prove that idea, and what was the ultimate purpose behind the birth of those monsters? Secrets of Time. Episode 3. The Aliens Create the Monsters. On July 13, 2008, at Montauk Beach in New York, a local woman discovered the carcass of a strange, unidentified creature that had washed ashore. It truly looks like a hybrid creature pieced together from all sorts of different animals. We can see the claws of a tiger, the beak of a bird, and the body of a dog. The photo of the Montauk monster rapidly spread at a dizzying speed across the internet and mass media. No one could discern what the creature truly was, for its form was utterly bizarre. It is difficult to prevent the conspiracies directed at this event. The majority of mainstream scientists believe it is something that was genetically modified, transported, or crossbred in a laboratory. Some people believe that the mysterious creature causing such a stir is actually a product of a government laboratory called the Animal Disease Center, located nearby. So where does this strange creature come from? How was it formed? And why did only a single individual wash ashore on Montauk Beach? To answer all of the above questions, animal researcher Lauren Kerman created a perfect simulation model of this monster. The strangest and most immediately noticeable feature is its mouth. It looks like a beak, but it has teeth. Its head more closely resembled that of a condor than any other creature known to man. For those who don't know, a griffin is a mythical creature, possessing the body, tail, and hind legs of a lion. The eagle's head and wings are majestically sculpted, complemented by sharp talons on its front legs. Traditionally, the lion is revered as the king of all beasts, while the eagle is regarded as the king of all birds. The lion is considered a particularly powerful and noble creature, and is also revered as the king of all animals. Returning to the strange creature in Montauk. When discovered, its body was in an advanced state of decomposition, with fluids seeping from its wounds. It is truly unfortunate that after the information began to spread widely, the carcass of this strange creature suddenly and mysteriously vanished. Therefore, the only evidence we have of that mysterious creature is merely a few photographs. However, while some researchers hypothesize that the legendary creature known as the Montauk monster is a product of modern science. Meanwhile, proponents of the ancient astronaut theory believe this creature could be a link in a long-term genetic modification process, carried out by beings who appeared throughout human history. If modern humans can create life in a laboratory, then our ancestors were certainly capable of creating the creatures of legend. I say this because within ancient texts, we possess countless incredibly detailed and strange records of mystical creatures. The most typical examples are the Medusa sisters, the hundred-headed giant, or the Cerberus monster. In Homer's epic Iliad, the author depicts a cataclysmic battle in which the hero Bellerophon slays the Chimera, a lion-headed monster. The Chimera was a fearsome monster that sowed terror among the people of Asia Minor. Homer describes it as having the head of a lion, the tail of a snake, and a goat's head protruding from its back. Not only does the Chimera possess a bizarre form, but it also has the ability to breathe fire, causing unimaginable destruction. Though not explicitly present, throughout history, these mythical creatures have consistently exerted a certain influence on the human psyche. Across various cultures, people have often envisioned mythical creatures such as minotaurs, unicorns, or winged horses. So, either we imagine everything, or it all happened at once. And above all, most of those monsters were created by the gods to serve a certain purpose of theirs. What I mean is they were already on a pre-made list for future plans. So are those mythical creatures simply products of our ancestors' imagination, or did they truly exist in history? Perhaps the answer isn't entirely clear yet, but one thing is certain. Those who believe in the ancient astronaut theory, the view that monsters once existed right alongside humans, has gained widespread support. Evidence of them is still preserved in ancient relics from the past. On a certain level, though there is still no concrete verifying evidence, I completely disagree with the view that all ancient mythical creatures are merely products of imagination. Our ancestors were no fools. History has proven that they always faithfully recorded what they saw and heard. We encounter many hybrid creatures in most ancient Egyptian mythological stories. If structures like the pyramids, the rituals, or the tomb paintings all hint at some supernatural force that had intervened, that mysterious creature could also be considered evidence strengthening the belief in extraterrestrial life. Now, imagine this. A massive spaceship just gliding through space for centuries, without ever stopping. Afterward, they discovered another solar system, home to a blue planet with the full potential to nurture life, just like our own Earth. Then, their astronauts looked down at the Nile River and saw the crocodiles. That sushi-like organism can withstand Africa's extreme heat. They saw yet another lion with extraordinary strength, a resounding roar, and a majestic mane. Currently, astronauts leaving Earth have begun to think that, could we use a combination of these organisms on another planet? And then, thanks to modern means of transportation, they created hybrid creatures, and some of them still exist on Earth as a result of these experiments. I understand that this hypothesis is rather difficult to convince you of. But listen to me share more about the griffin, the mythical creature that is a cross between a lion and an eagle. The lion is the king of all beasts, and the eagle is the king of all birds. Therefore, it is no surprise that griffin holds the title of king of all creatures. Despite the irrational nature of the course's design, a question now arises. If griffin truly existed in history, how was it created? At the end of the 19th century, scientists began studying fossils found all over the planet, to study the process of adaptation and transformation of organisms over time. The eminent scientist Charles Darwin, the father of the theory of evolution, once proposed the view that all living organisms on Earth share a common origin. Over the centuries, it gradually evolved through the process of natural selection. Could it be that hybrid creatures in ancient beliefs and legends are actually the result of natural selection? According to Darwin's theory of evolution, natural selection is the mechanism that enables life forms to change from one form to another. It only prioritizes based on organisms possessing certain traits, which are inherited from one another, thereby creating an advantage in the struggle for survival. Thus, superior dominant traits are gradually reinforced over time and are continuously inherited through generations. Thus, different species can still interbreed if they are closely related, such as donkeys with horses, or wolves with domestic dogs. But you will never see a dog crossbred with a cat, as they are completely incapable of reproducing with each other due to biological differences. Their genomes are so different that the chromosomes cannot align properly to carry out the cloning process. Clearly, Darwin's theory of evolution cannot account for the case of ancient monsters. When modern science still cannot find the answer, how will the question of our origins ultimately be resolved? Perhaps we should seek the answer elsewhere, in a place not of this world. Southern Pakistan, situated in the lower Indus River basin on the desolate plains of Mohenjo-Daro, is home to an ancient city known as the Mound of the Dead. This was once one of the largest cities in the world in 2600 BC. At the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, you will be amazed by its incredibly modern architecture. We have roads that run parallel or perpendicular to each other. Each house is equipped with its own private bathroom, along with a complex system of utilities far surpassing those of ancient times. This city actually has more in common with the place we live than you might think. Researchers of extraterrestrial life have long hypothesized that a nuclear explosion occurred over 4,000 years ago right at this very location. Why is that? How could it possibly be nuclear weapons? It was not until the 20th century that humanity invented that dreadful weapon, and only then did the true terror of it become a reality. Of course, we have absolutely solid evidence to support this claim. In the archaeological site, most of the skeletal remains were found in a crouched burial position. From inside the house to the outside street, they can lie individually or together within another skeleton. They all seem to die suddenly, in the blink of an eye, without a moment to react. Soviet scientists also conducted radiation measurements and obtained results beyond imagination. The radiation level in the area, particularly in the victims' bones, is 50 times higher than the permissible limit. There, they also found pottery from this region that had been melted under intense heat. The city was so devastated that even the walls were scorched, turned to glass, and flowed as if they could never cool. That intense, searing heat could only have been produced by a nuclear explosion. However, these are merely speculations based on reality. Can you provide a more specific and detailed description of a nuclear weapon from her era? According to the Mahabharata, a sacred Hindu epic, there is a passage that describes the following. Under the brilliant pink haze, the city suddenly became subtly yet utterly enchanting, like a flower blooming amidst the hazy dust. Thousands of horses were burned alive, their bodies seeming to dissolve in the heat of the sun. And an immense silence descended upon everything. The survivors began to develop strange blisters all over their bodies. Their hair and nails also began to fall out. Fong Sa. This means that not only humans, but all living creatures in that area, if fortunate enough to survive the explosion, will also suffer extremely severe consequences. Perhaps you've also heard of creatures contaminated with radiation, born with extra limbs or severe physical deformities. And who knows, when a creature is born with more arms than usual, by some miracle, it is revered by humans and becomes a deity in spiritual life. We know that most deities in Hinduism have more arms and heads than ordinary humans. Is this merely a random coincidence, or is it something more? Ancient documents also recorded that enormous flying creatures truly appeared in the skies above Mohenjo-Daro at that time. The ancients referred to them by a common name, Garuda. According to the epic Mahabharata, Garuda is the son of Kasyapa, a sage of supreme power in the universe. He had many wives, but in truth, he cherished only two the most, Vinata and Garuda. At that request, Vinata begged Kasyapa to sell her two sons who would possess strength surpassing that of Garuda's own children. And Vinata laid 2 eggs, but after 500 years of waiting, they showed not the slightest sign of life. Driven by overwhelming curiosity, Vinata could not restrain herself. She broke open one of the 2 eggs to see what was happening inside. Vinata's second egg took 500 years to hatch, and the bird that emerged was Garuda. Upon hatching from the egg, Garuda already possessed a magnificent form, so vast it blotted out the very sky. A single flap of its wings shook the earth violently. A terrifying power, on par with the great conflagrations of the universe, annihilated the entire world and brought an age to its end. Even the gods sometimes mistake the brilliant light radiating from Garuda's golden form for the blazing sun, as if it were a body of fire. Terrified of the gods, they pleaded with Garuda. Hearing their desperate prayer, the divine bird diminished his size and reduced his power. Later, while battling to obtain the elixir of immortality to save his mother, Garuda became the mount, Vahana, of Lord Vishnu, one of the supreme deities in Hinduism. It is said that on special occasions, Lord Vishnu would descend from the heavens riding upon Garuda. The place where the god alighted was engulfed in raging whirlwinds, and the earth trembled amidst a blinding dust storm that swept up and obscured everything. Have you ever wondered why the birth of Garuda is always associated with smoke, fire, and the destruction of an entire era? As far as I know, there is no weapon that can so surely annihilate an entire civilization in an instant, in a sea of fire. Could it be that the Daru Valley was the site of an ancient nuclear explosion, and was it this very explosion that gave birth to the monster Garuda? If that is indeed the case, then perhaps Garuda should be called a radioactive creature, rather than a mystical divine being. But there is a strange thing about Garuda that we still cannot fully understand. We often tend to overvisualize what a mutated organism looks like. This stems partly from familiar images of giant monsters created by biological mutation in movies. In reality, even if animals were to undergo genetic mutations due to nuclear radiation, it would be difficult for them to grow to a gigantic size because they live in herds. Moreover, modern science has proven that the vast majority of gene mutations are fatal to the organism itself. To put it simply, Garuda could hardly be the product of a genetic mutation. So what truly is the origin of this monster? So what is the secret being hidden here? The most captivating part of the story is truly just beginning from this point. In some ancient texts, Garuda is not only depicted with ordinary feathers but also possesses feathers made of metal. Now, all our previous speculations have suddenly turned to dust. Animals are not made of metal, only machines are formed from such material. What exactly are we talking about here? A monster or a flying vehicle? Garuda is known as the eternal enemy of the Naga serpents due to a curse. The Indian eagle owl also specializes in hunting snakes. In fact, this bird has a distinguishing feature: relatively short toes. Therefore, the image of Garuda is often used on amulets to protect against snake bites and snake venom, as it must consume snakes to survive. Let's set aside overly distant matters for now. Instead, let us envision an aircraft in the midst of mid-air refueling. Looking at those fuel hoses connected to the aircraft's fuselage, we all understand that the refueling process is underway. But can it be definitively stated that they are eating a snake? Once again, I am compelled to reiterate this. The ancient aliens knew in advance that our ancestors would worship them as gods. Because they knew that humanity at that time understood nothing about technology. We looked at it with astonished eyes, tacitly regarding everything as a miracle, as divine, as mysterious magic. However, the truth has never been that. To the east, not far from India, lies Langyu Shuang in what is now China's Sichuan province. The tale of the speaking beast has also appeared in ancient texts. In the 6th century, the historian Trong Mo presented a report to the king, in which he reported the discovery of the saliva of a real dragon. You probably still remember, we once had a dedicated video exploring dragons in the Legendary Creature series. You can easily review this content at any time. From today's perspective, we will discuss this issue in a way that differs from the norm. Now, we know that the divine creature can excrete and spew forth these valuable flames known as dragon. Based on ordinary biological principles, animals are entirely incapable of doing this. That must have been a machine, a product of extraterrestrial intelligence, far beyond the understanding of humans at that time. What machine can soar through the skies, spewing fire and ice, wreaking this kind of mass devastation? Are you absolutely certain that the image of a flying cow-dropping airplane isn't currently appearing in your mind? Sky monster. It is highly possible that Garuda or the phenomenon of fire streams were actually advanced technological aircraft from ancient times. And whether you believe it or not, the evidence for it is quite compelling. What are your thoughts on ancient mythical creatures? What is the truth behind them, really? Could it be that our ancestors were ultimately trying to describe modern technology in their own way? Or are you trying to document a bizarre biological mutant creature? It is not possible to rule out the chance that both of these assertions are correct. History still holds countless mysteries, while human knowledge remains limited. Looking back at the past is the best way to prepare for the future. Secrets of Time. That's all for today. And now, I would like to conclude my words here. Wishing everyone a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next programs.